Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming. Welcome back to my channel. Now that all the information for all the VIP monsters have been released, everyone wants to know, who is the best VIP monster? Well, I'm not gonna tell you. Not yet anyways. Instead, I've decided to make this video comparing and contrasting all the different VIP monsters. And I think more importantly, I want to bring forth this discussion of what exactly does it mean to be the best. Because there are so many different ways to look at what exactly it means to be the best. Are we looking at stats? Are we looking at skills? Are we comparing the VIP monsters amongst one another? Are we comparing them to their individual element? And then comparing how good they are in their own element to each other? Or what exactly are we doing? To give everyone an example of that last statement I made, take for example Zyla, who I think a lot of people agree is by far the best VIP monster. But also keep in mind that Voltaiks exists in the game. And Zyla is really just an upgraded Voltaiks in terms of offense, not in terms of defense, which actually brings another question to what it means to be the best. But more on that later. Because Voltaiks exists in the game, you can argue that you don't even need Zyla. Zyla would be a waste of money. Voltaiks does essentially what she does. He does it good in offense and he does it better in defense. Now take someone like Kai the Eradicator. Apparently for fire monsters, just about all of them are attackers. There's yet to be a fire deny monster. For that reason, when you take a VIP monster like Kai the Eradicator, who has the second highest power of the entire game, and who has a lot of strong skills, Kai the Eradicator easily outclasses a lot of fire monsters. So then you can actually argue that Kai the Eradicator is better than Zyla because Kai the Eradicator is needed more for fire monsters than Zyla is needed for thunder, just because Voltaiks exists. Especially for Team Wars, spending money on the Zyla might be a waste, especially if you can get Voltaiks for gems, whereas getting a very good fire monster, Kai the Eradicator, you can make the argument that he might be the best specifically because of his trait. So see what I mean? It's kind of hard to define what does it mean to be the best. In terms of Team Wars, are we talking about the best for offense? Are we talking about the best for defense? Are we talking about the best for player versus player? For adventure map? For dungeons? What are we talking about exactly? And it's also fair to take into account runes and the appropriate runes that you would equip on a monster. For example, everyone always hears me say that I think that deny monsters are way better than attackers 100% of the time. And even if a deny monster has worse base stats than an attacker, it doesn't matter because that deny monster, you give them all speed runes, whereas an attacker, you would never give an attacker all speed runes because then they would just become a useless monster. And because the deny monster can easily mobilize the attacker one or maybe several times, it's going to be a better monster. And then when talking about best monsters, some people like to include designs, which in my opinion is more subjective. A design I think is good, someone else might think is bad, and vice versa. So when trying to rank monsters, when trying to decide who is the best, I think we need to set guidelines, we need to set parameters, we need to establish what does it mean to be the best. Like I said, is it the best amongst one another? Is it the best for one-on-one? Is it the best overall? What does overall even entail? There are so many different variables. So these are all questions I'm bringing forth to you guys, the community. And with all those questions out there, I really want everyone in the community to give me your thoughts below in the comments. Write down what you guys think it means to be the best. What factors are you taking into consideration? And with that being said, I'm going to talk about each individual VIP monster, and I'm just going to highlight some of the best things these monsters have brought to the game. Starting things off with Kai the Eradicator, he has the best power of all the VIP monsters. More importantly, he has the second highest power of the whole entire game. As for his skills, he has a 60 damage, 1 turn cooldown, special based attack. That's really powerful. You can imagine with 2 strength runes, maybe even 1 strength rune, 1 high level strength rune, maybe a level 10. This has the potential to one hit a lot of enemies. And if that's not enough, look at Desolation Strike, 75 damage, 2 turn cooldown, special based attack. If you're not convinced that Destruction Strike would wipe out one enemy, then maybe Desolation Strike would convince you. 75 damage, that's 15 points stronger than Destruction Strike. Eradicator Blade is a 55 damage skill. This will work great against nature monsters, but it also introduced a new effect, Ignition. Over the course of 2 turns, the enemy monster ignited will lose 40% of their life, so that's 20% each turn. Now the great thing about Ignition is if you're going up against fire monsters, lots of fire monsters are immune to burning, but no one is immune to ignition, so that's really great. And looking at Star Flare, Kai the Eradicator has a 50 damage AoE. 50 damage AoE on a monster that has the second highest power in the whole entire game. That is phenomenal. So clearly Kai the Eradicator is one strong monster. If you want to compare him to Zyla, yes, Zyla can easily wipe out the whole enemy team, but quite possibly Kai the Eradicator can do the same, but he can do it a lot faster. Whereas Zyla would have to attack, Kai the Eradicator can probably just do Star Flare, enemy team is wiped out, especially if you partner up Kai the Eradicator with someone like Incognita or Lux, that can give him double damage and increased accuracy. But you know that brings another question. When we're comparing monsters, are we comparing them in terms of being in a team, like a 3-on-3 team, or are we just comparing them one-on-one? There's so many different things to consider. To fully utilize an attacker, you really do need to pair them up with a supportive monster that can buff them. I guess the great thing about Zyla is that she doesn't really need that. But anyways, Kai the Eradicator, a really great attacker, a really great VIP monster. And for those of you that are into judging the design of a monster when talking about the best monster, he also has one of the best designs in the whole entire game. And before I move on, one thing you're going to notice about the VIP monsters, you're going to notice that just about all of them can be attackers. And next we have Osar the Brave, and a lot of people have dubbed this monster Osar the Lame, which I think is just funny, because he really isn't that impressive. Probably his best stat would be his life, 32,572. Comparing him just among all the VIP monsters, that is the second highest life. It's second only to the Earth VIP monster, the Tenacious. Now comparing him to nature monsters, that's not to say he's not good. In fact, he can be a pretty good attacker. Just look at Massive Throw, 65 damage, 1 turn cooldown, and it dazes. Yeah, it's nature damage, not special damage, still a good skill. Look at this skill over here. It's a special base skill that deals 50 damage. At the same time, he recovers 30% of his life. Savage Wind heals all allies by 30%. We see this with a lot of nature monsters. Dazing Bat, 35 damage, AoE Daze. Ramido Tetsubu, 50 damage, and it gives life regeneration. Restore Bravery, target heals by 50%, may give precision to ally. So as you can see from the skills, there's nothing really too amazing that All-Star the Brave has to offer. When you look at Kai the Eradicator, he had an amazing power. When you look at his skills, he has a 75 damage special base skill. He has a skill that gives ignition, which no one is immune to. All-Star the Brave over here, he really doesn't offer much. Compared to the other VIP monsters, I would agree. This is All-Star the Lame. And next we have Hydrok the Tenacious. This is a VIP monster that in my opinion doesn't get enough credits. Compared to the other VIP monsters, this is the second fastest VIP, and in terms of life, he has the highest life. In terms of all legendary monsters, his life stat is actually the third highest, so that's really impressive. And I guess it's only fair to mention that his power is actually the lowest of all the VIP monsters, but really 32,000, it's not that low. If we were to factor in strength runes, you throw in a level 10 strength rune here, you throw in a level 9, a level 6, you know, it doesn't matter. If you give any monster, regardless of their power, if you give them strength runes, when you consider the fact that very low players like to use life runes, that means you're always going up against monsters that have a base life stat. So even though the Tenacious has the lowest power of all the VIP monsters, that's not to say he's entirely bad. Especially when we look at this, Power Shelter, 70 damage, 28 stamina, no cooldown. This is a spammable skill. You can use this as much as you want. 70 damage, that is insane. So I mentioned that just about every VIP monster can be an attacker, but what I like about the Tenacious, he's probably the only deny VIP monster. And even more than that, he can be a supportive, deny, attacker. Honestly, he's like just all around. Perfect Armor, gives a 100% shield to target, gives immunity to stun to ally, requires cooldown. This skill costs 27 stamina, has a 3 turn cooldown, but it gives one of your allies a full shield. At the same time, it gives them stun immunity. If you're using the Tenacious in an Earth war, lots of Earth monsters have stun skills. The Tenacious is pretty well off because of his trait. He has a 50% chance to block that stun, but he can use Perfect Armor on one of his allies, give that ally a stun immunity, and at the same time give him a full life shield. That is just wow. And let's look at Adverse Fortification. Hydrok will receive all single target attacks, returns all damage, requires cooldown. This is basically what makes Oros really good into one skill. Hydrok gains protection, so all single target hits are directed toward him. At the same time, he reflects 100% of the damage he receives. Again, for team wars involving Earth monsters, this can be really good. This can even help your common stay alive, your uncommon, your rare. Really good. Oh, and did I mention he has the third highest base life of all the monsters in the game? And look at Rampact Impact. Deals moderate earth damage, requires cooldown. This is a mega stun. This really fast monster has a mega stun. I don't think I mentioned this, but this is the fastest earth monster in the entire game. So if you like Bronzes because of his mega stun, if you like Oros because of his protection and reflect all damage skills, Hydrok is basically the both of them, but a really fast version of them. Like, yeah, Bronzes is cool because aside from mega stun, he has an AoE stun, but lots of earth monsters are immune to stuns, so you can argue whether that AoE stun is good, but a mega stun, no one is immune to mega stun. This guy is basically a super fast Oros / Bronzes. What's not to like about this monster? I think this monster deserves a lot more credit. In my opinion, he might even be the best earth monster. I mean, maybe that's a bit of a stretch. I guess with Oros, you do have that mountain trait, immune to freeze, immune to stun. At the same time, he has a life regeneration skill, and he has global stomp. I have no arguments against that. But Hydrok the Tenacious, he is just incredibly fast, mega stun, protection, returns all damage, gives one of your allies a full shield and stun immunity, has a 70 damage, no cooldown skill. So even if you give this monster one strength rune, one speed rune, one life rune, or heck 2 strength runes, 1 speed rune, or heck all speed runes, he's a really good monster. Now once again, when comparing who is the best VIP monster, because all VIP monsters have Bulwark, you can technically argue that it doesn't matter if he has Mega Stun, there's a 50% chance that it's not gonna work. Well, that also means that 50% of the time, Mega Stun is gonna land, which means Hydrok can immobilize the enemy monster, which means Hydrok can immobilize the enemy VIP for 2 turns, and then just use Power Shelter twice, and they're pretty much as good as gone. Not sure if I mentioned this before, but Hydrok is the second fastest VIP monster. And next we have Xyla, and Xyla is the fastest VIP monster. And I think a lot of people would consider Xyla the best VIP monster because she's basically an upgraded Voltaik. And when I say upgraded, take that lightly, because I think a lot of people will argue against that because Voltaik has 4 extra turn skills, so he's perfect to put on defense because it's AI proof, whereas Xyla only has 3 extra turn skills, so there's a chance the AI will mess up. So Xyla has fast chains, 0 cooldown extra turn, agony chains, 50 damage, 1 turn cooldown extra turn, and affliction chains, 55 damage, 2 turn cooldown extra turn, and it dazes the enemy target. So that's a nice little bonus, it dazes, is. Voltaiks doesn't do that. Aside from that, one thing you notice about Voltaiks is that his stamina cost is way too high. Whereas right here we have 55 damage, only a 34 stamina cost. If you take a look at Voltaiks 50k volts, I think it's like 75 stamina. It's just ridiculously high. So for that reason, I would say Zyla is an upgraded version. Now the one thing Zyla doesn't have is that all of her skills are thunder based, at least the ones that give her an extra turn. And yeah, that's really all there is to say about Zyla. And then we have Hydrok the Forgotten, and just like with Ultra the Lame, a lot of people just love to play with his name. There's a reason he's the Forgotten, and that's because he's not that great, at least a lot of people think so. Stats wise, compared to the other VIP monsters, his stats are pretty much well balanced. He's kind of in the middle for each single stat. Now the primary reason a lot of people don't like Hydrok is because he didn't really offer much. He's a water attacker, and this is what I was talking about early on in the video. When comparing monsters, when comparing VIP monsters, do we compare them to their individual element, or should we just compare them to other VIP monsters, or should we be comparing them to attackers? If we compare them to water monsters, then again, deny monsters are always better than attackers. That's just the way it is. But let's take a look at some skills. Decompression, 60 damage, 1 turn cooldown, special damage. That's pretty good. Cold water wall gives a 50% shield to target, gives immunity to freeze, and this is a self skill. So against other water monsters, because he can give himself a freeze immunity, that's pretty good. You can argue that because he has bulwark, he doesn't really need it, but there's that 50% chance that some immobilizing skill may land. At the same time, however, Hydrok would not be running 3 speedruns, whereas the enemy water deny monster would be running 3 speedruns, so there's probably a chance they're going to immobilize you before you even get a chance to use this skill, assuming the immobilizing skill lands. And then that still doesn't stop you against monsters that can do stamina drain, or cabin fish who has an AoE stun. Ancient Anchors, 45 damage water based AoE. Ambient Pressure, special based, 50 damage that gives bleeding. Cold water wall gives a 30% shield to all targets. It says big shield, so I think it actually is a big shield, so that's pretty nice. But if you're making this monster as an attacker and you're giving him a supportive skill, then you're missing out on him attacking, so you can argue whether that's good or not good. And Borrowed Trauma deals massive water damage. 70 damage is nice. My only argument is that it is water based. When compared to another VIP attacker, Kai the Eradicator, he had a 75 damage special based attack with only a 2 turn cooldown. Look at this skill, it has a 4 turn cooldown. So you can decide for yourself whether he's impressive or not impressive, whether you can forget him or remember him. And next is the VIP monster with the second highest power and the lowest life, Nox the Condemned. And I don't even know where to begin with this monster. Deadly Rip deals very heavy dark damage, low chance of killing enemy instantly. So given this monster's power, given some strength runes, 60 damage, dark based attack, that is really strong. Against earth monsters, it'll surely kill them in one hit, even though they are tanky. Aside from that, it does have that instant kill chance. To bosses 2%, to normal 8%. I've been told that if you use a monster like ROFL, or if you use Nexor and apply Shocked or Illuminati Confirmed, both of those effects make it so your attacks always hit. And I've been told that if you use Deadly Rip on a monster that has one of those negative effects, the instant kill chance always lands. So I don't know, if someone in the comments has tested it, please let me know if that does or does not work. Nonetheless, a really good skill. Incubus Scythe is a special based 30 damage AoE that also gives nightmares. I'm only mentioning this because this monster has a skill that gives him double damage. Dead Vision extracts 75% of enemies max life. Nox also loses 75% of his own maximum life. Dead Vision can be extremely helpful in adventure map. You can easily defeat the boss when going up against tanks. Dead Vision, easily wipe them out. This is truly a really powerful skill. And look over here, Torment Rip, 75 damage, 1 cooldown, it also gives bleeding. This pretty much tops Kai the Eradicator skill. Now of course Kai the Eradicator does have a higher power, but when you're talking about base powers over 3500 and you're gonna give them a high level rune and they're probably gonna be dealing over like 50k damage, it doesn't really matter if one monster is dealing 50.2k and the other one's only dealing 50k. Plus one thing this monster has over Kai the Eradicator is that it gives bleeding. So for example, the only monster that could possibly survive an attack from Kai or Nox would be a really tanky monster. With Torment Rip, the bleeding would really take away a big chunk of their life. Then we have Total Obliteration, deals insane special damage to all allies and enemies. Allies receive less damage if the attack doesn't hit all enemies. So this is 80 damage, but I've been told by some people that they actually nerfed it to 60 damage. You guys can let me know in the comments below whether that's true or not true. And what do I say other than wow? If you put this monster on defense, even if the AI was to use this skill, there's a high chance that the AI will end up winning because of this skill. In terms of you using this monster for offense, you probably don't want to use this skill. He has a fine selection of other skill sets to choose from. So I know a lot of people said this monster is not good in Team Wars. I think because he has Torment Rip and because he has Deadly Rip, he's still a good monster to choose. Also in player versus player, if you use Total Obliteration, you're gonna end up winning the match. Even though both teams would probably die, you win the match. And lastly, we have Abducted Soul. Kills an ally, gains double damage, double life, gains an extra turn. This is by far the best attacker. Sorry Kai the Eradicator, Nox just wipes you out. Now the main downside to this skill is of course that it kills one of your allies. But this is why I'm saying, what does it mean to be the best? If we're talking about player versus player, dungeons, adventure map, team wars, defense, this monster is probably better to use than any other VIP. If we're talking about offensively, you probably wouldn't want to use Abducted Soul, and like I said, his other skills, they're still plenty good. But Abducted Soul in every single scenario, he gives himself double damage. Torment Rip becomes 150. Deadly Rip becomes 120. Total Obliteration, it'll either be 120, 160, nonetheless, just absolutely amazing. So far you guys can decide who's the best. And then we have Scar the Outcast, the very first VIP monster to be released. And a lot of people actually consider Scar the Outcast to be the best, if not one of the best. He certainly has an amazing design. His stats, he's actually probably the most well balanced. He's in 3rd place for power, life, and speed when comparing him to the other VIP monsters. So really good there, Scar. Now, I'm actually going to start off by saying I'm not entirely sure why so many people consider him to be one of the best VIP monsters. In my opinion, comparing him to other monsters, I don't even think he's in the top 3. So let's take a look at some of his skills. Fugitive Charge, 50 damage, 28 stamina, no cooldown. This would be helpful against Himerion. Against the other VIP monsters, against other monsters, you really don't need to worry about having no cooldown. Witchcraft Area. This is the reason I think a lot of people love him. Deals low magic damage to all enemies, may apply 2 random negative effects. People love and go crazy for 2 random negative effects. Now, in my opinion, I love it too, but at the same time, there's no clear denying with this. There's a chance you may be able to immobilize the enemy monster, but it's not guaranteed, and I don't like that. I'd rather prefer an AoE freeze as opposed to 2 random negative effects to each of the enemy monsters. But that's just me. And especially if we're only comparing within VIP monsters, using this skill against the other VIP monsters, there's that 50% chance that it's not gonna land, and then look at all the different negative effects. There's a lot of ones that it really wouldn't matter if it landed. There's a lot of ones that aren't that great. Exile Bleed, 45 damage, no cooldown, gives bleeding. That's pretty nice too. Amplified Power, gives himself double damage, stamina regeneration, and precision. That's pretty cool. However, my main problem with self buff skills is that it always takes 1 turn to set up, whereas you look at Nox, he gives himself double damage and an extra churn. Yeah, of course he kills one of his allies, but hey, you know, it's an extra churn. Vagrant Ownage, 45 damage, magic based AoE. Outcast Charge, here we have it, 60 damage, 3 turn cooldown, bleeding. So this is his main offensive skill, and it doesn't compare anywhere to Nox, it doesn't compare anywhere to Kai the Eradicator. And look down there, that is my video. Awesome. Anyways, I think the main argument for Scar being one of the best would probably be because of Witchcraft Area, so you can argue whether that's good or not so good. Because when you look at Nox and when you look at Kai, they can wipe out 1 enemy monster guaranteed with 1 hit. If Kai had 2 level 10 strength runes, he could potentially do his 50 damage AoE, and that could probably wipe out the whole enemy team. If Kai had 1 level 10 strength rune and did his self buff skill, then he could do his 30 damage special based AoE, and that could probably also wipe out the enemy team. Scar the Outcast, he could do that, but it takes 1 turn to set up. He can do Witchcraft Area, but that won't be killing any enemy monsters. So again, it's up to you to decide who's the best, who's not the best. And then we have Voltaiks the Pure, the slowest of all the VIP monsters. And even though this monster isn't that fast, I don't think he gets enough credit. I think this monster has the potential to be one of the best. And it's not because of his stats, it's because of his skills. I fear that I'm partly to blame for him because I didn't give him enough credit in his analysis, but just check it out. He has Spear of Wrath, 60 damage, 2 turn cooldown. Okay, like I said, Kai's better, Nox is better. Scar the Outcast also has 60 damage, but it gives bleeding. So Spear of Wrath, not the most impressive. Nonetheless, still a good attack. Oh, but let's take a look at this skill, Light of Punishment. Deals low light damage to all enemies, removes all positive status effects from target. It's an AoE, 30 damage, but it has no cooldown. You can spam this skill over and over if you needed to. And this skill removes all positive effects. When going up against earth monsters, that means removing shields. When going up against nature monsters, that means removing life recovery. When going up against light monsters, that means removing stamina regeneration, life recovery. When going up against a team that has a supportive monster, that means removing that double damage, removing that increased accuracy. It is a pretty good skill. Oh, and probably the best one, when going up against Himerion that did space-time, you can do Light of Punishment, get rid of space-time. Or when Himerion and Gretchen do their mirror effect, you can wipe it out with this skill, because it has no cooldown. That's just pretty good. Now the main counter argument to this skill is that in the world of Monster Legends, it's usually you run a deny monster with all speed runes, you win an attacker with 2 strength runes, 1 speed rune maybe, you run a third monster that has all team speed runes, your deny monster denies the enemy, your attacker wipes out all of the enemy in 1 or 2 hits. And that's basically how it goes. So for that reason, you can argue that in the current meta, removing good effects isn't probably needed as much as you think it is. But let's take a look at this next skill, Light Salvation. Allies take no damage from all elements except light for 1 turn. This skill is amazing. In Team Wars, if you can immobilize the enemy light monster, and you bring with you a level 4 common, a level 4 uncommon, a level 4 rare, and you use Light Salvation, your monster is going to be protected for the entirety of the game, assuming you can take out the light monster who is the biggest threat, because that is the only attack that is going to go through the light blocker, and of course physical attacks, so hopefully the enemy doesn't have a physical attack. So yeah, I don't know why Voltaiks the Pure doesn't get more credit. Light Salvation is amazing. Queen Luthien has this. Light blocker is really good, especially for securing 3 coins. And if we compare him to other VIP monsters, no one's going to be able to hit Voltaiks because of light blocker, so it's really good. He can save himself for 1 turn. But once again, when comparing him to VIP monsters, the biggest argument against this skill is that he's the slowest. So if you give 1 level 10 speedrun to Voltaiks, 1 level 10 to any other VIP monster, they're technically gonna go first, and they can probably wipe out Voltaiks in 1 hit. So yeah, there is that. But anyways, Spear Tempest, 75 damage through turn cooldown. Alright, awesome. Another really high power skill. Divine Light gives stamina regeneration, double damage, and precision to an ally. So that's great. Volgarde can be a supportive monster / an attacker monster. If you were to partner on Volgarde with another VIP, they can make a deadly combo. And lastly, Spears of Agony, 45 damage, light based AoE. Once again, it's up for you to decide who's the best VIP monster. And last but not least is Uther the Valiant. Stats wise, compared to the other VIP monsters, keep in mind there's 9 of them. He has the 5th highest power, the 7th highest life, and the 4th fastest speed. Uther is definitely an attacker, maybe even like a slight tank I'd call him. So he has a skill called Bravest Heart, 65 damage, no cooldown. It also has a 50% chance to burn. If you saw my analysis, I said that it doesn't matter that it's a 50% chance to burn, because with his power, some strength runes, and the damage of the skill, that's enough to one-hit most enemies. And it also deals special damage, not metal damage, so even going up against metal monsters, it can really help you out. The 0 turn cooldown is perfect for when going up against Timerion. He has a special based AoE that deals 35 damage and gives bleeding to all enemy monsters. Heroic Soul is a metal based attack that's 65 damage, also no cooldown, 50% chance to give bleeding, again also perfect if you're going up against a Timerion. And this kind of goes back to what I was referencing at the beginning of the video. Like, Uther is really good in his own element. Being a metal monster, having 0 turn cooldown skills when Timerion is a main threat, that is really good. Look at the Forgotten, who had a 70 damage 4 cooldown churn skill. Even though it has a 4 turn cooldown, because it deals more damage and no VIP monster has the cooldowns activated skill, that's technically better. Anyways, here's something nice that the other VIP monsters didn't have. It's a 50 damage AoE that is special based. So Kai the Eradicator, yeah, he had 50 damage, but it was fire based, so against fire monsters, not as effective. But Uther over here has a 50 damage special based skill. You give this monster 2 really high level strength runes, and surely he's going to be taking out the whole enemy team in one hit. Doesn't matter what element they are. Whereas you take Kai the Eradicator, and even if you give him 2 high level strength rune, if he's going up against fire monsters, there is that slight possibility, because it's fire on fire, he might not finish them off. And Taste of Victory is a really nice tanky skill, heals by 30%, gains a 30% shield, so that's just a really nice way to stay alive. So there you have it. I talked about all the VIP monsters, I talked about some pros and cons, and now I want to leave it up to you guys, to the community. I want you guys to let me know, who do you think is the best? I know I had you guys answer that question in a previous video I made where I ranked the VIP monsters by their stats, but now that I've brought forward this conversation and that I gave this, I guess, like mini analysis on all the VIP monsters, now let me know, who do you think is the best? And yeah, at the end of the day, no list is going to be the same. It's a really subjective thing to do, but nonetheless, it's still fun to do. And pretty soon I probably will be coming up with my own list. I'll maybe even do a people's choice list if I see that lots of people agree on a certain monster. I don't know, that's an idea I have. So yeah, let me know in the comments below, who do you think is the best? Let me know what you think it means, or what your interpretation of being the best means. Also, please be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, and share this with all your Monster Legends friends. Let's get together as a community and debate over who is the best VIP monster, who is the one actually worth purchasing, if any. With that being said, I hope everyone has a great amazing day or a great amazing night. Remember to dream big and pursue your passions.